gives me great pleasure to introduce Giles Hudson, who's going to be our next speaker. I'm not going to read out the information that's in our booklets. He's going to talk to us about a challenging journey. Giles, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ralph. I was about to introduce myself, but it's done for me. Thank you. Now, please bear with me. I'm relatively new to this. As you gather, I don't have a clinical background. I'm going to give a case study of one brain injury survivor, called it A Challenging Journey. Bear with me. Just get the... Okay, defiance in the face of adversity, challenging inability. This person suffered a very serious head injury in December 1985 and is still recovering and adjusting to life now. I want those who identify with this to achieve as much as they can. Now, first setting the background, their background. The person worked at ICI Billingham, that's a chemical engineering company. This person's future was planned. The person was 19 years old and received an Apprentice of the Year award for their achievement, their performance. It was the end of a 4-year instrument artificer apprenticeship. Had University Place confirmed, had 4 unconditional offers. One of those was from Durham University, whom this person decided to go with because it was closer. It was the 3rd best in the country at the time. Had sponsorship arranged, confirmed. Went with British Aerospace. Played ice hockey. Went skiing. Was a part-time motorcycle instructor. On the road to achievement and a great future. One evening, this person was persuaded to go out with some friends. I warn you at this point, some may find the following images a little distracting, disturbing. I'm sorry if I keep turning because I just realised it's in front of me. Okay. I'll let the following pictures speak for themselves. This person was avoiding a car coming the other way, well, driving on the wrong side of the road. It's amazing to think somebody could have got out of this. Yeah, that was me. As you can see, I survived. A huge thanks to paramedics and medical staff. I suffered a very serious head injury. I was taken to Middlesbrough General Hospital, and that was on the decision of the ambulance crew because I was out of the caption area for the hospital. That was the hospital with neuro facilities. Initially, I was given a 25% chance of survival. For 3 days, things were very critical, and there was no guarantee of my survival after 2 weeks. I was in deep coma, unresponsive, unconscious, rigid. The Glasgow Coma Scale rating, that's showing the severity of my brain injury, I was 3, the lowest. Based on eye-opening, verbal skills, motor response, the score, as you probably know, 1 to 15. The lower the score on admission, the more severe the injury is assumed to be. 3 means deeply unconscious or dead. I was the former. I'm the former. It was 3 months before I was totally out of a coma. My post-traumatic amnesia, I was confused, disoriented, unable to remember, was at least 6 months. That's before I had any ongoing memories. Over 4 weeks, this class is extremely severe. The hospital actually told my parents, with the injuries I'd sustained, they would have to accept they would never get the same son back, that I would never, ever be the same again, and that I may earn a living. And one consultant at the hospital informed my parents he will never be able to earn a living. This is not very good things for parents to hear. My injuries, all of my brain suffered damage, many neural pathways broken. My skull was fractured, my pelvis was broken back and front. I had a fractured spine. Below the waist, I was paralysed. I had 2 urgent brain operations when things went wrong and I almost died. The first operation was on the 16th day. I was left kinked and twisted. I showed I was still in there fighting when a very distinctive voice called, "Hello, Giles, love." That was my old hairdresser. I raised my hand in recognition. I was still in there. The second operation was on the 17th day. They removed fluid and a blood clot. I was now straight, and I was paralysed down the left-hand side and stroked. I lost most personal functions, the ability to walk, talk, and eat. Almost everything, a major memory loss. My eyes began to open slightly after 3.5 weeks, but I wasn't seeing the real world. It was 9 weeks until I could see and recognise the world around me, as suddenly I came out with where they've been hiding for everyday objects around me. And I frequently flipped from adult to child. Have I done this in the right order? Bear with me. I have now. Sorry. I was in hospital for 3.5 months. Well, I said what I wanted to say and didn't show the pictures. Yeah. I was in hospital for 3.5 months. I was taken to Middlesbrough General Hospital. That's the accident centre. That particular hospital has been knocked down now. I'm not sure my age, but I was in there for 6 weeks. Critical ward, then ward 17. High dependency, then a side ward. My parents were the keepers of my body while the medical staff saved my life. I was like a skeleton covered with skin. I was moved from the critical to the rehab ward. That was West Lane Hospital. That was 30th of January 1986. I was floor nurse for safety, and that's where my rehab began. I was like a baby reborn, and that's where I made my first animal sounds. I think it must be for the second time, because obviously I was a child once. And that's where I ate my first food, egg yolk. My speech came slow. It was clear, then a babble, many answers jumbled into one. On the 43rd day, things, well, they got better. I got Sago yogurt then. Daily, Mum whispered in my ear, "Hi, sunshine, Mum here." Then she walked to the bottom of the bed and said, "Who am I?" And I said, "I don't know. Who are you?" I had no memory. One visit, Mum took me outside, and she said, "Come on, son." I replied, "Shine," which told Mum I'd heard what she said, even though I hadn't recognised her. I couldn't recognise her. It was 1 week before I went home that I recognised Mum. As she walked in the hospital, I raised my hand in recognition and said, "Hi, Mum." She cried. She broke down in tears. In Coma, you go through many stages: love, hate, calm, and anger, a bit like a Jekyll and Hyde state. On the 61st day of my nightmare, they decided to zunk me out for a week. I was walking up and down the wards day and night, trying to get out. I'm not surprised by the way I was being treated. I must have felt like I was a prisoner. One day the nurses, worried I may hurt myself while they were on their coffee break, they put me in a wheelchair and took me with them. I apparently stamped my feet and called them sadistic fascists. They laughed. I relaxed and laughed with them. I think that must have been a funny day. But it was different on the 78th day. I became difficult for staff and they put me under heavy sedation and I was deeply unconscious. And then Mum arrived and I must push myself to the surface. I said, "Mum, I'm dying. They're going to tell you when I'm dead. Please take me home." And I slipped back into unconsciousness. Yeah, it was a frightening journey. That's a sound clip from the Great Escape theme music, World War II, Prisoner of War Camp. That's something where I felt I escaped, barefoot, in the snow, wearing pyjamas. And I was found trying to get into the hospital library. That wasn't the best disguise, and I didn't exactly fit in, did I? One of my previous deliveries of my presentation, a member of the audience shouted out, "So you're the one." And apparently she was in West Lane Hospital, and I was the only one ever to have escaped. It does sound like that part of the hospital's been knocked down now. I now appreciate I was in there for my own security. On the 27th of March 1986, that's Easter weekend, that's when I came home for good. I didn't know it at the time. That was my 20th birthday. At this point I can tell you, my first 6 months' knowledge of this, I've been made aware of by my parents, Gwen and Ron, in the audience there. Mum kept a diary. It helped her cope with the emotional pain. And she wrote a story for Headway Christmas, 1989. That's a picture of me out of hospital and my friend Graham. A skeleton's me. Graham was my ex-motorcycle training colleague. At that point, if a memory returned, my parents would take me to relive the time and the experience and the place. And returning from one such trip, I put a tape on in the car. I thought, well, that's the time we had tapes, not CDs. I thought, and it was Goodbye Girl by Go West. And I was unaware that music had been playing at the time of my accident. And oblivious to where we drove past the site of the accident, about 2 minutes from home. And I cried out, my car, and I became very distressed. Until then, I thought I'd had a motorcycle accident. At the time, it was my mum who was driving, and she took me home and had to be my father to get me out of the car. And just to show the effect of music, I'll stop the music now, the effect of music on memories. During my recovery, I used music to help develop my memories. I can just have one example, Angels by Robbie Williams. I learned the lyrics and the timing, and I sang it to myself in my flat and in my car. Other people didn't seem to appreciate my voice. But it was helping me. At that time, I suffered dysphagia, that's impairment to communicate, dysphagia, speech motor problems, I had speech therapy. I had massive things to deal with. From this point, as you appreciate, I faced major challenges. I had to relearn almost everything. I had to learn who I was, how to live life, and how to re-establish a future. The perception from the outside began to get was, what's he worried about? At least he's walking. In terms of the walking wounded. Okay, for me the damage is all on the inside. From experience, although I've made enormous progress, my remaining problems are seen as a weakness. That's wrong. It's so wrong. life's now all about overcoming my challenges. With a notebook and pen by my side, because I don't have any short-term memory. Sometimes it can be just seconds. If a memory, well, first of all, working on memory, those close to me worked on my memory and my abilities, reading books, writing, dominoes for numbers, blockbusters, that was a quiz program, anything to stimulate my mind. Then learning and remembering. I spent 10 years studying and retraining and filling my mind with lost knowledge. I was so determined to find a way forward. A stranger actually knocked on our door, who'd heard of my plight, knocked on our door and taught for help. And as I kept all my old school books, lucky me, sad me, but she was able to use the same methods to redevelop my memories, my abilities. That was another piece of my jigsaw back in place. Hard work, but worth it. There wasn't much support in the area with people who suffered acquired brain injury, and I don't think there's a great deal of support there now, a little more. In 1986, my parents became involved with hospital staff and carers, and they formed a group that was Formation Headway Middlesbrough, and they had meetings with brain injury survivors, people affected by brain injury, their families, carers, medical professionals and solicitors, and I think I was a patron going there as well. On the 21st of June 1987, I gave a public service announcement on Tyne-Tees Television Newcastle, and that was raising the awareness for Headway in the north. I think at that point my voice was very monotone. Mum later managed Headway Middlesbrough for some years. She stepped down in 1990 to spend more time to look after me. And in 1990, Headway dissolved and was resurrected as Headway Teesside in 1996. For me, life was all about solutions, goals, and seeing a way forward. I am, and always have been, a quiet, hard-working individual, an achiever. I showed and demonstrated how determined I was, despite facing many obstacles and disappointments. I see a problem, and I'm driven to find a solution to the sort of person I am. Thank goodness. The key message: approaching all of life's challenges with a mindset not whether I could do something, but how I would do it. This enables me to see and find there is always a better way forward if I looked hard enough. It's all about appreciating who I am now and looking at the abilities I now have. Experience to show me that it's not what you can't do, it's what you can do that counts. I should have gone the other way around, but always looking for the positive in everything. Something this journey has taught me. There's a quote from a film, The Pursuit of Happiness, starring Will Smith. When I saw this, I had to write it down. Don't ever let somebody tell you can't do something, not even me. If you've got a dream, you've got to protect it. If people can't do it themselves, they want to tell you that you can't do it. If you want something, go get it. Period. Obviously that excludes medical advice. You've got to draw the line somewhere. Yeah. Right. To put things in perspective, my social development was all about facing the unknown. Many questions for me. First, the challenge of meeting people. Acting appropriately. How do I act appropriately? Asking for help. How do I ask for help? Meeting people I don't know. That was everybody. Everyone. Meeting groups of people. That was more than one person. Getting out of my comfort zone. That's everything I did. And then applying this to my home, my environment, and then work. That's somewhere to have a meaningful purpose in society. It was all about putting the jigsaw of life back together again. Then, looking to the future. Mum wrote a letter of encouragement to the letters page of the Daily Mail newspaper for those facing the horrors and consequences of head injury and what it implies. Then there was a knock at the door from the Daily Mail, which resulted in these articles covering my story and situation. The first newspaper article was late 1986. The article covered the severity of my injuries, from which, with the exception of my parents and family, nobody thought I would achieve much. Then the second newspaper article a year later, that was on the 1st of January 1987, they returned to do a follow-up, and it was a Daily Mail special on the victory for family love to show how much I'd achieved, the positive moves I've made. Following that, in the best interest of my progress and my recovery, media attention was avoided. It was on the day of the second newspaper article. I don't think I want to apologise for the 80s haircut, but it was in at the time. Yeah, it was January 1987. That was after corrective eye surgery. I lost the ability to see around corners, so I didn't think that was very positive to start with. But I received a New Year's present from the Department of Transport, permission to drive again. I was deemed well enough to drive again. Now my prayers have been answered. It was about practice, practice, practice. For confidence, I went with my original driving instructor, and it was 6 months before Mum and Dad had the confidence to let me go solo. In the early 1990s, I passed the Institute Advanced Motorist, or IAM test. I am a good driver. It was about making myself more skilled to avoid the unforeseeable, unexpected dangers out there. That's me as the DJ in Radio North Tees, hospital radio, from 1992 to 94. For me, it was part of my rehabilitation. It was about interacting with people, having a meaningful purpose, making a difference, and cheering people up. At that point, I became in need of inspiration. My improvements, my achievements, my progress, my developments, they seemed to stall. No matter how hard I tried, I wasn't moving further forward. I was missing something, so I thought outside the box. It's the type of person I am. I sought to meet prominent people who had faced adversity and overcome great challenges, to discover how they found their inner strength. So I wrote to many people for help and advice to regain my place in society. And one of the people I wrote to was Benjamin Zander. Now he's a celebrity conductor for the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. It was for the London Philharmonic Orchestra, but now it's just the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, and he's a motivational speaker. And he wanted to meet me when he was next in the Northeast. In July 1997, I met him when he was in Newcastle, where he was nurturing young musicians. He gave me hope and inspiration, and he invited me to a recital he was holding at Chillingham Castle in Northumberland, where he told my story and how I was fighting to regain a future. I was there, one of his guests, Colonel Miriam Bridges, OBE. He has a Global Army record. He climbed Everest. He came over and he told me how he was in awe of my achievements and the enormous courage I'd shown in fighting back from such adversity. In his words, I may have climbed Everest, but I could never have achieved what you've achieved. He asked if there was any way in which he could help me. And I told him, I was looking to meet someone who had achieved greatly, who faced great adversity and achieved greatly. I know this gentleman had, but I told him I wanted to meet Sam Weston, OB, the Falklands War veteran. And he told me that I wouldn't be able to contact him directly. He would have to contact him through his military records, which he did. And Simon came to meet me in Newcastle, and that was the 10th of November, 1997. He was an amazing fella. I met him in the hope of gaining inspiration to take my recovery further and to help me make the transition from recovery to active life and the world of work. I'm still in contact with Simon now. He was a great fella. He's a great fella. There's a picture of Simon Westnoby and me. Simon expressed admiration and respect for my achievements, considering my lack of specialist support and help and assistance. At this point, I was looking for a new career. Every day I was reminded of how the odds were stacked against me, posing the question, is there really any chance of employment after a head injury? Going back to my old career wasn't an option. Things had moved on too much. My abilities were compromised. After contacting the then Prime Minister, Tony Blair, he put us in contact with the local MP, Darry Taylor, and she put me in contact with Roy Brown in 1999, and he was a trainer. Well, he was a manager at the Teesside Tech, and he told me that I could be employed immediately if I had a teaching qualification. So, in 2000, I developed a career in teaching. With help and understanding from college staff, I completed a teacher training qualification, enabling me to start a new career in teaching. I received a Special Achievement Award for my contribution to the course. I then gained employment in teaching and training with the organisation that enabled me to work on a voluntary basis for them while I gained my qualification. When they saw how good I was, they employed me. My employer made reasonable adjustments with work conditions that was welcome help, not just a Disability Discrimination Act requirement. Allowed me to teach small groups, so I give them the attention they needed. Give me time allowance and equipment. They give me a netbook, which is like a small computer, to step in for some of the memory issues I had. I use mind mapping. That's a memory tool I used. I was first introduced to this by my mum's friend Mildred Lunn in 1999, and I read more about this from a book by Tony Bazan. And that was my chosen subject when I gained my teaching qualification, and that works for me, enabled to use my fractured mind. We had a soundtrack for that one. Is it not working there? Okay. Okay. That's The Eye of the Tiger by Survivor by Rocky III. I think it's in 2010. That was my first charity running event hosted by my then employer, that's Working Links. Show physical stamina and ability is important for mental stamina and ability. It kept me working. It kept things moving for me mentally. I'm not sure whether that's pain or a smile on my face, but it's another achievement. I'm not sure if I would have achieved this before my injury. What motivates me? Trying my best to achieve anything. That prevents me from blaming myself for what I'm unable to do. From experience, the harder I try, the more I achieve. Not wanting to let anyone down, that's including myself. When I try my best, people want to help me. Not letting disappointment stop me, and there are plenty of those, even now. And being very patient, very patient. Wanting to be all that I'm capable of being. From experience, doing the right thing brings the right outcome. My strategy: persist, plan, deal, and believe. Persist, never give up. Plan, have a plan to achieve my goal, your goal. Never give up on what you want for yourself. And deal, I see any setbacks as a learning experience. Then believe in yourself. I believe in myself. It's about believing in yourself. My continuous challenges, the after effects of my head injury and my ongoing recovery. My mental executive skills, controlling my thinking, are damaged, affecting my planning. My working memory, that's my short-term memory. My attention having short attention, problem solving. Verbal reasoning, that's having the ability to understand spoken words and information. All these processes are going on in my mind trying to work things out, tires me out. Then inhibition, saying the first thing that comes to mind and not thinking about the impact of the problems it will cause with others. Then mental flexibility, that's black and white thinking and not considering anything in between. Then task switching, writing, speaking, moving, doing two things at once. Initiation, taking the first step. Then there's the people factor. People assume I look okay, I have no problems, but I have, as you've heard. 28 and a half years ago, from December 1985, life was so different with new challenges. How I managed these challenges, these changes in life, I must constantly use coping strategies and valuable tools. I have a time manager, it's a bit like a file of facts, but more detail allows me to schedule information, mobile phone reminders, pill reminders, a sat-nav to show my way about, and my wonderful wife Helen in the audience. I don't know what I'd do without her. I'm always forgetting people's names, so I have coping strategies. Losing track of conversations, I have coping strategies. Losing track of events, I have coping strategies for that. Then dealing with large amounts of information. Getting mentally tired very quickly. I'm inclined to get lost. I can't tell my north from south. But although I have a sat-nav, I continually try to do my best to get from A to B, using my damaged ability and get lost. I would tell a story of when I continued to travel for Headway Darlington. I live in the Stockton area. I keep getting lost. So I wrote down the road names. I got lost. So I drew a little map with some landmarks. I got lost. And so whatever I did, I got lost. And in the end, I used a sat-nav, I got there. In Hartlepool, where I've recently been working for a year, it took me an hour to get out of Hartlepool. That's before I even had to drive home. Because I tried to get out without using my sat-nav. I used my sat-nav, I got home. And Ingleby Barwick, where I live, I was just walking, and it took me about 40 minutes to get home. It should have only taken me about 10, 15. I didn't realise I had sat-nav on my phone. So that's how sat-nav's important to me. People sometimes experience, but I experience this every day. This is me in 2011. It's a picture of me in a virtual shop. Not a changing career for me. That's a virtual teaching environment where I taught retail skills, shop security skills. I give other teaching sessions there. Medical staff indicated that I wouldn't be capable of this. That was the 1980s, 90s. I think the medical profession are far more aware of the possible potential of their patients now. Through personal drive, with immense support from my family and friends, I've made fantastic unexpected recovery in the eyes of top medical professionals. I demonstrated great ability in employment for some 11 years, but when my then employer lost the employment contract and the new employer saw medical details, I was sidelined. I was out of work for some 2.5 years. When I was making applications, I wasn't getting taken to interview, continually overlooked. But in February 2014, I gained employment as a 1-year part-time employment, an organisation called Real Life Options. They support people with learning disabilities, learning difficulties. I was taken on as a project worker to develop a service to support people with acquired brain injury in Hartlepool. Now my endeavour is to gain full-time employment again. My approach to moving forward, my progress, set goals to complete, break them into manageable steps so they're not overwhelming, set a timescale to complete them in, plan and work to achieve the tasks. This keeps me focused, motivated, and ensures my progress. For me, the roads have altered, but my goals have remained the same. That's a quote from my mum. Every day I push myself to the limit. It's all about achieving what I'm looking for. Some inspiring words I heard someone say. It's my new outlook. This quote from a film, We Bought a Zoo, starring Matt Damon. Sometimes 20 seconds of insane courage, just 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery, I promise you something great will come of it. For me, it's about taking the first step. A quote my mum told me, there are plenty of pebbles on the beach, and one day you'll find the one for you. I found my very special pebble very unexpectedly. That was my wedding, the 12th of May, 2007. Soundtrack Amazed by Lone Star, but I was unsure whether that day would ever happen. Yeah, it means a lot to me. I have difficulties which you may not have noticed, or you may have noticed. Difficulties with short-term memory, quick and logical thinking, switching attention, and scanning my surroundings. I'm doing my best. Cartoon I saw, which I thought was rather appropriate. We've reached the boundary between the absurd, the impossible and the absurd. Which way do you want to go? That's my life interview, something I'm facing every day. That's when I want to mention loneliness, about socialitis. Something I've experienced massively, sometimes I've been socially isolated, where I felt lonely, feel lonely sometimes. It's always been about reaching out for me. A constant feeling that I have no opportunity to share. Because I felt and I feel nobody really understands. I know I'm not the only one like that. An essential part of my progress, my family, friends, my support network, are a key part of my recovery process, a lifeline. There are huge demands and strain and pressure on them. And they're almost helpless to intervene, but they do what they can. They face despair, isolation, and complete loss. Some think they may still face. For the family, the initial fear about whether their loved ones will survive is replaced by the fear of what the future will hold and what level of recovery they'll make. For me, life's all about staying safe. Wearing your seatbelt. If I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, I wouldn't be stood here talking to you today. And then keep my head safe. We're going out cycling. With my wife, wearing my cycle helmet. Just recently, 7 months ago, my wife suffered a stroke. And so we've had to put cycling on hold for a while now. She's doing very well. And my experience has now been both as a patient and now as a carer. At this point, it's important for me to point out the medical profession has moved on a lot and advanced considerably since the 1980s and 1990s. I know it's all about putting it into practice. This is a rare opportunity for me to tell my story in such depth. And it's somewhat of a challenge for me. See, for me, the future is a work in progress. But standing here against the odds, helping others to have a better quality of life, is a reward in itself. Thank you for listening. Thank you. I'll be emotional there. Thank you.
Giles, thank you very much. That was extraordinary. I'm not sure I've really got the words to respond. You have asked the question. Does anybody have any questions to pose?
The journey has been, it's really hard for me, and it has been an uphill climb, but you will be, you're in a better place than me to know about like neurological support and help. Yeah, please ask me any questions. Well, I know I mentioned about learning development. I was using music, and I try and use kinesthetic things, taste, sound. For me, it's all about making the future better for other people facing such challenges. So please ask me any questions that you have any.
Steve Ashford, North West London, King's College.
Stephen.
You mentioned about your goals. You mentioned your goals a few times there.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how you derived them. You know, how did you identify what the next goal was for you, both the big and the small things?
Yeah, it's a good question, Stephen. Right. Now, I'll take myself back to following my injury. When I had to look for a new career, I had to think back to what I used to do in my past career, and I thought I've been teaching people to do the role I was doing. Maybe I could do that. And it was somebody who told me, no, you have to think again, you need to go back to college. And that's, I think, looking back at my strengths, and well, I have to focus on your question now, Stephen. I was getting lost there mentally. I have now been using my experience. I got involved with like Headway. I became chairman of Headway Downton District. I had to step down following my wife suffering a stroke, but I'm still on their committee on a voluntary basis. I got involved with CATRIC, that's a military, well, in past work with Real Life Options, I identified people with issues with PTSD, needed support, and I was reaching back. I got in touch with Sam Weston, and he advised me to get in touch with the Padre at CATRIC. Apparently he knew everything, and he put me in touch with other military contacts, and I was made contact with the Phoenix Recovery Centre. Now I'm on the Headway Forces support group there.
So I was just asking about how you identified your goals. So you've sort of highlighted there that you tapped into various resources and discussed with other people.
Yeah.
Was that a helpful thing to do, and was the impetus to do that yours, or was it other people prompting you to do that?
No, the drive was mine.
Yeah.
I was looking for an answer, and I'm like following my injury. It's been much more difficult to develop new abilities, strengths. Now I'm in a period where I'm not working at the moment. I've just come out in February last month. Is my contract with Real Life Options ended, and I have been given. I was invited to speak on an interview panel. That was at South East Health Authority to interview for occupational therapists, again voluntary. And just earlier this week, I was at Teesside University, and it's helping occupational therapy MSc students, for them they could use me as a case history, helping them develop. And I'm going back for like feedback session next month. And I'm looking for, basically I've identified what I've been doing. I've been brain injury consultancy. I've been using my experience, and so that's where I'm looking to use the skills which I now suppose I've demonstrated, but now turning it into a paid role. Things are a little more pressure for me now, because my wife, having suffered a stroke, I'm the only one who can work in the family, so I need to make some progress there. But taking that, the pressure out of the way, it's about finding the right way forward. And what I'm doing with the grateful help, support, guidance from my father, he says what you need to do is you need to find out what training you need to take yourself forward in that field, like use your experience and skills. So I'm looking through contacts to find out, get someone to mentor me through it, or talk, get contacts. That's the road path's open for me now, but I know what I've done. I've got evidence what I've done since my injury, and I don't know if I answered your question well there or not.
You did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Steve.
Does anybody else want to ask a question? Giles, could I ask you, over the last 2 days we've been thinking a lot about some of the interventions that for physiotherapists to provide, and one that came up this afternoon was recognising fatigue.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether you could tell us a little bit about your experience of that.
Yeah. Now, to find a way forward for me, I'm always looking to develop coping strategies, and I think about fatigue. I think to myself, well, I've got to find, it's not an option whether I find a way forward. So I find a way. I'm taking, I've got it, and I feel my head's like fatigued, stressed, but I just push myself forward and drive myself forward. It's something that I constantly deal with now. I find it difficult to answer your question out there, but it is something I know I'm always going to have. They'll always be part of me. And I think I can only lessen it by finding the right path forward to me career-wise and life. Yeah. And I'm trying hard to do that. I suppose a lot of people have the option of which career, which direction they take. But with me, there are a lot of other factors that I've got to consider. So it's a bit of I wouldn't say a minefield, but it's a bit like a maze, isn't it? It's been wonderful meeting everyone here, and I'm hoping my contact with everyone here is going to find me a way forward. I know I'm not here for that. I'm here to speak about my journey. But I'm just trying to find a way forward. Yeah.
Well, Giles, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
We're going to do a final address by our keynote, Robert Van Deursen.
I've obviously had 2 days to try and think about what on earth you would say at the time of closure. But before I do any of that, I'd like to say a few things. I was certainly deeply honored to be invited here, and I thought very hard and long about how can I contribute to your conference. And I wanted to share knowledge, have discussions, and hopefully provide some inspiration. What I didn't realize is that I actually would be the one most inspired. The other thing that I wasn't totally prepared for, and I'd hope not to, but Giles, he's not paying attention. I used to be a physiotherapist, Giles. I want to just... no, you can stay where you are. One of the things I was just saying about how I felt, I did the keynote lecture at the very beginning. Once in my life I was a physiotherapist, and then I moved into academia. And so I thought by coming here I would be able to pay back to my own profession. because it was my inspiration to try and work on the evidence so that I could help support the development of my profession. But with your talk, you actually reminded me why I became a physio in the first place. And I really thought your talk was excellent. I have come across many people like yourself that always touched me for their deep commitment to making something of their own life, and it is that force that you can generate that has always been why I felt I was effective as a physiotherapist. So I think that this was really good to experience. You have to realize that I have to sit through so many boring meetings at the university that you sometimes lose the will to live. And so it was really great to hear why we are alive. You are very good at expressing that, and I really hope that you will find a job where you can have that sort of effect on people. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.